know that the market is changing at the neck-breaking speed, right? Creative has never been more important than nowadays. So next one up is an expert panel with Anna, Justin, and Cristin, who will dive into what it takes to get to $1 billion in revenue when you get your creative strategy done right. They will go into a lot of details, also touch on privacy concerns, which is something getting bigger and bigger nowadays. It's gonna be a very insightful session. Can't wait to see you on our virtual stage. Let's go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Winning Creative Playbook, how to test your way into $1 billion in revenue in 2021 and beyond. I'm Justin Hayashi, CEO and founder of New Engine. I'm an analyst turned marketer and have spent the last decade of my life partnering with CEOs and CMOs to profitably scale their business across digital.
Hi, I'm Cristin Ford. I'm the VP of Creative at New Engine. As a creative, I've spent my career designing tests and proving out the value of creative work and using that to help scale businesses. So I'm really excited to share a little insight today on how you can do the same.
Hi, I'm Anna Otieno, creative researcher and strategist, super passionate about cultural and industry trends and also random trivia. And I'm the head of research strategy and insights here at New Engine. So Justin, Cristin, and I are super excited to talk you through our content, the Winning Creative Playbook. This is a proven playbook that has scaled brands to billion-dollar businesses, and we'd like to show you how your brand can do the same in 2021 and beyond. Our goal today is to show you how you can lean into rapidly changing markets to stand out and get ahead, tactics for squeezing the maximum performance out of every creative campaign, and tips to arm creative strategy for the upcoming and ongoing market and privacy changes. How do we know this strategy works? Well, we've done it before. In just 3 years, one of our partners shot up to $140 million in revenue, mainly on word of mouth and low-cost media marketing. And shortly after, this company raised a funding at $1 billion valuation. We'll show you how to do this too, but first, a little bit about New Engine.
So for those of you who haven't heard of New Engine is a modern digital-first agency of record for businesses looking to accelerate their digital programs. We do this through our expertise in media, creative, technology, and research and insights. Overall, we're about 200 people strong and have offices in New York, LA, Seattle, and Charlotte, North Carolina. Our clients range from D2C disruptors like Figs or Everlane to long-standing titans in their respective industries like Google and Home Depot. The scale at which we operate is just under $1 billion deployed in ad spend and hundreds of thousands of new ads created per year.
Probably the most delightful discovery for me in joining a performance agency to develop a creative practice was how measurable creative impact is and how much you can tell the limit of pure creative optimization through the data. It didn't have to do much testing early on to find that simply editing and adjusting copy, images, versioning can drive tons and tons of scalability and performance, and that has a limit, and that we can find out where that is through data and really see the need and value in things like totally new concepts, going in a fresh direction, producing new content, understanding and exploring your brand messaging. And so our creative practice has really developed to do all of those things. We really want to be able to find the limits of optimization and really fine-tune creative so that it works well in all channels. And when we hit the limits of those things, turn that into insights that we can then, generate new, exciting creative directions and really explore brands' creative expression in all the channels we have at our disposal.
Our research strategy and insights practice includes a combination of deep research dives and high-level big picture insights. This strategic vertical includes market research, industry landscapes, competitive analyses, and future forecasts. It's basically what does this mean layer in media, creative, and insight services. So let's dive into the playbook. We've outlined 3 key strategies to use as you lean into a changing market and society and design that standout creative that Cristin mentioned. 1, operationalize your foundation. 2, customize your creative. And 3, modernize your program. Cristin will take you through the first strategy.
Thanks, Anna. Okay, so step one, operationalize your foundation. Maybe you weren't expecting a creative person to say operationalize. It's not the sexiest term we have, but it is actually just super critical and important to setting up a good creative practice. When success stems from the agility and throughput of your creative work, the way that you operationalize that really matters. It always surprises me how many brands and companies are still setting up their creative teams and their creative business to bring to life one single creative vision for catalog or other print mediums, when so much of the access to your audience is through digital means. And that comes with tons and tons of different ways to access people. So you really want to operationalize your creative practice around those needs. So I'll give you a few different ways to do that, from owning the mentality, building your swim lanes, to creating frameworks. First, you really want to own the mentality. Over 800,000 ad creatives tested in under 5 years probably sounds like a staggering, ridiculous amount for anybody who works in creative. And it kind of is. That encompasses, copy and images and designs and concepts. That's a lot. That's what our team has produced. It really comes from reacting, adapting to what's working, what's not, and sparking new ideas, new campaigns. And so this is big ideas to small ideas. This is kind of big picture to granular changes. What's important to me is that we're involved in all of those things. So it's not just the big picture, kind of pie in the sky, big bets, but it's also the granular, small scale, executional things that could really be game changing in specific channels. From a creative perspective, you want to be able to own all of those things. And that means that you need to really be set up to move quickly with the channels that are kind of eating up your creative along the way. So that takes me to the swim lanes. Iterate and optimize ads, that kind of small circle over on the right, that is something that moves really quickly. Digital channels like Facebook, Instagram, Snap, TikTok. I mean, these are channels that move really quickly. They're platforms that change and evolve at a really rapid pace. So if you want to have ads and you want to have that as a channel for your creative expression, you've got to keep up with it. You've got to move really quickly. From a creative perspective, if you aren't keeping up with those channels, there's platforms and automations and other ways that marketers can kind of tackle that and take advantage of it. And it makes a lot more sense to be able to use that as a place for experimentation, exploration, and then really be able to garner interesting insights that then can inform new steps that you're going to take from a creative perspective. So you don't only want to be moving fast, you also want to have ways of stepping back and taking kind of a bigger look at your creative, making the space for fresh new concepts, big picture brainstorms. Ultimately, the things that you learn from that can inform the production of original and new content. And in even bigger picture world and kind of a longer time frame, that can inform your brand strategy, the styles that you're creating. All of these things create an ecosystem that can inform each other and create a really, really strong creative expression for your brand. So from a creative perspective, you have a lot of power to own this entire process if you're setting yourself up with those swim lanes in the first place. Okay, finally, you want to have frameworks. So this is really about unifying your teams with a common language. You've got creative folks and you've got analytical folks. Both of those people can kind of bridge the divide in analytical thinking and creative thinking. That can give a really beautiful kind of harmonious system if you have a common language that those people can brainstorm on and generate insights on. So this is just an example that we use at New Engine between our creative team and our media team to develop a common language around the creative we're going to produce, and then test how we'll tag those, track the performance, and then feed insights back to the creative team. So a framework like this allows us to separate things like high-level concepts or brand messaging from the content we're using, like types of videos or types of photos, to really executional details like, is it close up? Is it far out? Is it lifestyle? Is it product focused? Whatever those specific executions are. Is it a 6-second looping GIF, or is it, a 15-second video? Those kind of things all can teach you different takeaways around what's working in creative and what's not. So by having a common framework, your media folks are able to track all of the creative decisions that you're making and tell you what's working, what's not, and give your creative team a sense of how they can continue to build on their success.
Great. Now that we've got the foundation covered, let's hit the second strategy of your playbook, which is customize your creative. Research and insights directly informs creative and continuously feeds those testing ideas, just as Cristin said. You could think about it like understanding people better. This is done by mastering the market through consumer and industry insights and cultural trends. That's the people part. Taking authentic actions to be a better and more conscious brand, and then launching a creative and insights process to regularly test and improve your creative. So master the market. Track and translate important changes like the index of consumer sentiment, demographics, human behavior, and just general consumer attitudes. If you know the market and you know people, then you'll also know how to design creative that speaks to them. This is an area that changes daily, so in no way is it a one and done. Mastering the market means studying every trend and change and then exploring why. So next up is authentic actions. Right now, brands are really playing it safe in response to current social changes, which means that there's room for growth and authenticity. We can't ignore the public health, political, social, and racial unrest that the world is collectively experiencing. Now is really a good time to redefine what corporate social responsibility means for your brand, and then to expand the definition to include different areas of authenticity that align with your business. So this could be ethical commerce, fair trade and labor, diversity, equity, and inclusion, sustainability. The definition is really limitless. So a few ways to take authentic action: identify, initiate, and impact. Identify the interests and needs and the concerns of your audience, which this is about better understanding people once again. This means asking the tough questions of your brand and of your consumers, and then outlining your role in addressing those issues. Initiate creative campaigns, partnerships, and engagements that turn your words into action. And then lastly, impact people. Impact them by following through on those previous steps. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Patagonia, Native, and Cora have all done so recently. In June of 2020, wellness brand Cora took a step back to identify their company's gaps in diversity and initiate change. And then months later, Cora reached out to its customer base with an email that had some impactful updates. Those updates included adding more BIPOC voices to editorial, partnering with organizations that support underserved communities, and creating a race and intersectionality vertical within their business. So as you can see, authenticity is key. This approach of identify, initiate, and impact outlines how successful brands can really own their social responsibility, especially right now. So basically, let's go ahead and drive it home. Research and insights fuels every concept and creative iteration. Each step of the creative process requires a new and relevant research background and insights. So for example, a global pandemic, economic stimulus programs, political campaigns, these are all topics that can really change quickly, so should your creative. Showing people hugging and high-fiving, for example, that may not meet the moment if the moment requires social distancing. So that's how you can customize your creative. Justin, what's the last step of our playbook?
Awesome, thanks, Anna. So at this point, hopefully you can see how creative informed by a strong understanding of consumers and the market work hand in hand. The last pillar of the winning creative playbook is to modernize your program with a data-driven backbone. So this includes committing to a success metric, tagging your creative, and testing into your channels with the key word there being test, not go all in on all channels at all costs. All right, so I know there are a lot of marketers here, so we're gonna play a little game. Before diving into the substance of this section, first we're gonna look at some ads. And this is admittedly a throwback example of pre-COVID times. But I want you all to guess which ad worked the best in driving ticket sales for this specific company. The answer, each ad worked the best at a different time with different spikes in performance. And this is because the digital landscape is changing all the time. It never rests. Consumers change, ad serving algorithms change, and social and economic factors are always at play. And even these ads here are no longer relevant in a world where many of us are avoiding crowded environments and maskless gatherings. The one thing we know for sure is that you can't predict the future. All right, so let's now talk about the backbone for tracking your performance. Growth marketers, they're often looking at performance day in, day out, but it's easy to lose sight of the forest through the trees. It's important that you take a step back and set a rhythm for the broader creative performance reviews. Our recommendation generally is monthly, and it's enough time to get real learnings, but not so frequent that it's burdensome. So taking it back to what Cristin showed as part of the creative testing framework, we now have a nice and simple example here on the left, with the concept being game day for the LA Clippers. The illustration is a pretty simplified view, but you can imagine this scatter plot having over 20, 30 ads in a given month with multiple ads sharing a certain theme. With upfront planning on the themes to test, we then tag these assets to capture thematic performance trends instead of just individual ad performance. And we do so with our creative tech, but for those that don't have our technology, you can also use UTMs and Excel spreadsheets to organize. The main point here is that you got to tag your creative to understand intimately and objectively what's really working for your business. Lastly, you can't just run on Facebook and Instagram anymore. It's important to think multi-channel and activate on new inventory with this test and learn approach. Because what works on Facebook is going to vary dramatically from what works on TikTok or Hulu ads. And with this disciplined approach, we're confident that every brand can unlock sustainable and scalable growth. So to wrap up this section, the playbook is definitely easier said than done, as it requires organizational alignment, exceptional teamwork, good data, technology, and agile resources. But all that investment and coordination is far worth it.
Thanks, Justin. These are all great ways to modernize your program. There's so little that we could rely on being the same year to year. So this playbook is really designed to be agile. That being said, I'm throwing in a wrench. As you execute this playbook, I'm guessing that some challenges may pop up, and I want to throw out one of those and get your thoughts. So recently, there's been a lot of discussion around consumer data and privacy, particularly Apple's iOS 14 update, which includes a lot of changes intended to give consumers more control over their personal data. What does this mean for brands and businesses in light of our playbook?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the creative playbook is going to become even more critical due to the loss of data signals. And this is because advertisers can no longer rely exclusively on black box publishers to optimize the right ad for the right audience in the same way. A lot of the publishers had developed automated solutions that allowed advertisers to just plug in creative assets, sit back, and let the algorithms do the work. But as signals get compromised from privacy and user security, advertisers are going to need to employ a much more structured approach. On top of that, the volume of assets will need to increase to support a successful digital advertising program as targeting capabilities get less granular. So the challenge you're calling out here is a great example of just one of the many things out of our control. But the one thing we can control is how we adapt. And having the backbone and framework in place allows for that critical adaptation muscle to develop.
Yeah, and I'll add that from a creative perspective, this is really exciting. I mean, the changes in the market that happen like this are just one of the many ways where creative has the opportunity to step in as a leader and help solve these problems for brands. So, as there's potentially like less prescriptive briefing or less specific kind of one-to-one messaging that is capable through some of these platforms, does that offer an opportunity to, like Anna said, master the market and really take a creative strategic approach to the hypotheses around what's going to work for different audiences. So I see this as one of the many ways where creative can step up and help lead the charge in solving for this challenge.
Awesome. That's a great way to wrap up the playbook. I think now is actually a great chance for us to ask a question of you and get you guys thinking. From the research and insights perspective, do you know what matters to your audience?
From a creative perspective, how do you think you can elevate your creative operation to meet modern marketing needs?
And as you think about modernizing your program, how is your team structured and working together to enable speed and data-driven decisions? All right, so just to recap, we walked through 3 critical creative testing strategies today. Thank you all so much for taking the time to hang out with us. We'd love to go deeper on your brand and see how we can help you become a billion-dollar brand in 2021 and beyond. Hit us up at newengine.com and set up some time. We'd love to talk with you. Thanks so much.